Trust me, this video is more stupid than you think. I like JoJo's. I like Vento Arreo.
I like you. Have a cupcake.
Melone. That's the topic of this video. Melone is a minor villain in Part 5 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. He's a very interesting character. He's a part of an assassination team of the criminal organization Passione, the team being dubbed La Squadra Escusione, or just La Squadra if you don't want to say all those syllables. La Squadra is a minor villain force in early Vento Arreo, a group who wants to capture the boss's daughter to find out the boss's weakness, and take over Passione for themselves, because of what happened to two of their members, Sorbet and Gelato. But let's be honest, I could just be a boring guy who shares the basic facts about this character and then call it a day. But come on, that's boring. What do you take me for? Being boring? Being a boring guy? How could you? I spit in your general direction. Puh, puh. No. I want this video to be more. I want you to come out of this video knowing more than you came in. So that's why I used my inner Melone. Maybe not that part. And I did my research. And I think I found everything I could about him. Not only am I going to be covering the manga and the anime, I'm going to be covering spin-offs, games, and even how he's viewed in the fandom. So I'm indoctrinating all of you into learning something about this JoJo character, so you guys can become Melone experts. So let's dive in head first and break our necks, backs, and ribs on the bottom because it's really shallow talking about this character.
I'm on tool core running up this indie cheese. It's not a crime to be a freak. Let that nigga Diddy free. What? Why y'all cut the beat? Was it the Diddy line?
So first, I want to talk about Melone's design. Melone's design is very interesting. It's based on Venetian designs, with his weird translucent headband that wraps all around his face to conceal his identity. That's not concealing anything. We can clearly see his face.
I'm not Roger, I'm the Phantom! Roger? Well, yeah, who did you... What?
He dresses like he got kicked out of a store because he wasn't wearing a shirt. And now he's wearing the bare minimum just out of spite. I personally like the anime's color schemes over the colored manga. I feel like Melone works better with shadowy colors, so the light purple for his hair fits better. But the bright blonde hair, it throws off the design. And let's not even talk about the game color scheme. Melone's personality is that of an eccentric one. He doesn't really care about the well-beings of others, and he does stuff later on shows that. When around people, he's usually quiet and reserved, but when he's alone, specifically doing his job, he gets more into it, I would say. Exclaiming his catchphrase, "Demolto!" People believe that this catchphrase is wrong, because when translated into English, it means very much, which doesn't make any sense contextually. So most translations just sub it out for de molto bene, which means very good. But that's actually wrong. De molto isn't broken Italian, but it's actually a Tuscan dialect. This could imply that Melone was raised around Tuscany, and so a little bit of his vocabulary slips out, which I feel adds to his character. And finally, his stand, Babyface. It gets its name from Kenneth Brian Edmonds, who goes by the stage name of Babyface. Babyface's localized name is Babyhead, and I just think it just sounds so dumb, calling it Babyhead. Babyface's ability is that of a very strange one. Babyface has two parts to it. The first one being a laptop that can collect DNA samples, and with a host can grow a substand. This substand being an auto-tracking, being an auto-tracking long-range power-type stand. Most auto-tracking long-range stands are very limited on how they track, like Sheer Heart Attack being only able to track heat, or Black Sabbath being only able to go through the shadows. But the special part about Babyface's auto-tracking stand is that it's intelligent, it can learn from its surroundings, and it can learn in real time. It could even be taught behaviors and patterns from a young age. Babyface also has a permanent tracker to the blood sample, so he knows where the target is at all times. This substand is given the cute name of Junior. Aw, look at the little baby. Now look at the big baby. Junior also has a special ability of its own. Actually, many abilities. There's so much abilities to the stand, it's just crazy. It has the ability to turn any bit of matter into cubes and change its properties. It can do this to its own body as well, being able to camouflage into everyday objects. Oh, did I also mention that Babyface is just straight up invincible?
Wobbly animation.
Yeah, for some reason he's just invincible. Yeah, he didn't need that to happen, but okay. Sounds broken, right? Wrong. Babyface has its limitations. First, it needs to be under the right circumstances for it to actually grow formidable. It needs to have the right mother, a person who's a bit violent but is also in healthy condition, and also have an incompatible horoscope with the targets. I wonder though, if Melone picked compatible horoscopes, would Junior go and protect the target? Also, another problem with Junior is that he has a will of his own. Melone has no control over him. He has to use the power of suggestion through the console on Babyface to get Junior to complete his job. This leaves a lot of room for Babyface to become rebellious against Melone and do whatever he wants. Babyface's design is pretty cool, both the computer and Junior. I like the computer's design. It's like this cool alien portable laptop. Doesn't look practical at all though. And Junior, I like him. He's a little man. He has these weird like gum teeth things going on. Kind of looks like Echo's Act 3 a little bit, but with a spiky mohawk. It looks like they nailed a whole bunch of stuff to his head.
Bam! We catch ourselves a baby hammerhead. Look at him.
Melone is voiced by Junji Majima. He does the voice of Gunpei in the Musakabe Hill of The Spoke Kishibe. And for the dub, Melone is voiced by Brian Hanford, who does the voice for V in the Devil May Cry series. He does a pretty decent job for Melone.
Babyhead!
I wonder if he thinks that name is ridiculous. But the voice for Babyface he does is interesting. It sounds funny. It's sort of bad, but it's that bad that kind of fits the character and makes me smile every time I see him.
I'll give you credit. You actually managed to spook me a bit, bastardo. Now get ready for the hurt, because I'm gonna rip your head off.
Alright, that's enough of that. It's time to go over Melone during...
Is they cutting food stamps? Google, is they playing? Cause I ain't in the mood, dog. Google got me tripping.
Melone debuted in JoJo's 500th chapter on April 7th, 1997, and only appears in 8 chapters, right after the Grateful Dead fight. But in the Vento Arreo anime, he appears a lot earlier, in episode 7, as a cameo with Visato and Giacchio and the other members of the squadra. But in episode 10, we get a loosely anime original plotline of Melone accompanying Prosciutto, Pesci, and Formaggio while they're on a hitman job. He doesn't really do much during this hitman job besides look at a woman's legs and licks his lips.
Bro, what the fuck?
I like how the squadron feels like a group of colleagues. They don't like every member in their ranks, but they also don't hate every member. Like, Araki could have just made them heartless hitmen who don't care anything about each other, and it would have been fine. But Araki decided to add a bit more depth and flesh out more dynamics with the characters, like Prosciutto and Pepsi, like Prosciutto and Pesci, or Melone and Giacchio. That's kind of why there's a lot of La Squadra fans, because they're a big group that is morally gray. They're definitely a more darker shade of gray, but they're gray nonetheless. I want to make a video in the future about La Squadra, because I think they're a pretty good minor antagonist force. I probably won't go into detail like this video on every character, but who knows? I could go crazy. So like and subscribe if you want to see that come out. Alright, back to Melone.
Look at all this porn!
So Melone arrives at the scene of the crime on his motorcycle after Prosciutto and Pesci have both been killed. He takes the time to mock his fallen comrades with such a jerk move, I guess. And he collects Bucciarati's blood in order to create a junior. So he breaks into a random woman's room on the train that Bruno's gang was on. And we get this scene. A scene that is controversial as it is unsettling. For context, Babyface needs a mother in order to create Junior. So Melone breaks into this woman's private coach in order to check up on the woman's physical condition. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer here for a bit. Granted, this is a shonen, so nothing graphic is going to happen, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. If you are uncomfortable with these themes right here, I would recommend skipping to this time code. Alright, we need to go over this again. Melone is a total creep. We all know this. He has this quirk, feels weird calling it a quirk, but he objectifies women. He sees them more as cattle, but he is very weird about it. licking people is pretty weird. I'm not gonna defend this, obviously. He is a villain after all, and Araki made him like this, so we can have some resentment against him. Melone forcefully makes this woman answer questions, digs around to her purse to find information about her. But the ending part of this scene sticks out to a lot of people, coming off as super dark. Melone pulls out his console and asks one final question.
Which one would you fancy? You've heard of the ancient Indian Sanskrit text known as the Kama Sutra, yes? It includes more than 48 erotic positions. One cannot underestimate their importance.
This paints the situation in a super dark light because of these forceful sexual undertones. And in the manga, this chapter ends by cutting away from the scene where we just see Babyface state that fertilization is complete. This is dark, but it's nothing new to JoJo's. Rape has been mentioned in the series before, like with Angelo's horrible crimes in part 4. But this time's a bit different because it doesn't really follow through with it. The next chapter, Lady wakes up and she's afraid that, the worst case scenario has happened. But she goes to check herself and she's perfectly fine, which is weird because the last chapter was building up for something really dark to take place. But this one, they kind of subvert it. But we do know one thing, that Melone nor Babyface did anything sexual to the woman. I would say he's innocent, but he's still, forced her into an uncomfortable situation. So, yeah. Also, for those who skipped ahead, welcome back. All you missed is that Melone didn't do anything. He's just a creep. Babyface doesn't sexually reproduce. It's more of a parasite, with Junior kind of growing on the back of this woman. So Babyface is born and quickly learns violence from his very agitated mother. I'm just gonna skim through this fight. I know the fight is like 7 chapters and isn't that long, but personally to me, I feel like it drags on and there's nothing really special to really cover. So yeah, Babyface grows up fast and he apparently has the knowledge to ride a motorcycle, and he speeds off after Bucciarati. This leaves Melone with no vehicle, so he has to take the train, which is funny. Babyface captures Trish and Bucciarati with little to no effort. It's very weird, and somehow he breaks into the turtle, so technically Babyface has already won, so now all he has to do is leave. But he gets caught by Giorno, and then they start fighting. Babyface is actually on the winning end of this, with Giorno being presumed dead after Babyface steals his throat, his foot, and his eye. But this leads to Giorno learning that Gold Experience can regrow body parts. It's kinda like that scene in part 3 where Jotaro figures out that Star Platinum can freeze time, just like the world. Which I actually like, that's pretty cool. Babyface and Giorno start fighting again. This leads into Melone telling Babyface a strategy that fails ultimately. And Babyface gets angry at Melone and just chooses to stop listening to him. We see this concept expanded upon in the short story, so stay tuned for that. And because of this act of defiance, Babyface starts learning and growing at a rapid rate. And then he promptly gets defeated by Giorno. But wait, isn't Babyface invincible? How did Giorno kill him? So we cut back to Melone, and he's at the train station where he gets the call from Giacchio asking, how's the mission go? Melone responds that Babyface has been defeated, but since he has Bucciarati's blood, he can just keep pumping out juniors to go attack the group. But as he's saying this, a snake slithers up to Melone, and then Melone just stands there like he hasn't seen a snake before as it lands on him and bites him right on the head of his head. The snake was actually Babyface that was transformed into a snake by Giorno, and that's how Giorno got rid of him. And as we all know, organisms made by Gold Experience always go back to where they came from, whether it be a body part or whether it be a stand. Another similarity between Gold Experience and Babyface. Melone's death kind of feels cheap. I mean, it was necessary because he would just be a constant nuisance to the group and not really add anything to the story, so I mean, it's fine. I still feel a bit and that's the last we see of him in Vento Arreo. Definitely one of the more forgettable fights of the La Squadra saga, but I still found enjoyment in revisiting this. Overall, not too bad of an arc.
Come on, yes, okay, come on. Oh, yes!
Now I want to cover some minor stuff that Melone has starred in, like games and books. First, I'm going to start with games, obviously. I believe that the first game appearance of Melone was in the infamous Geo Geo Bizarre Adventure for the PS2. This was a retelling of Vintoreo in game form. You don't actually fight Babyface nor Melone in the main story, but you can watch him in a cutscene. They had to cut a lot of content before this game could release, and so Melone's fight probably got axed. There's no model of him in the game, he's just a picture. The only way to see this cutscene is by unlocking it in the gallery menu. His colors still suck, but you know what they say, in the world of JoJo's, there is no color. Melone isn't really playable in most games, probably because of how hard it would be to translate his complex abilities into a moveset, but instead he's dedicated to the options menu character. He greets you every time you open the options menu. He was probably chosen because of his very computer-centric design, and he strangely has a weird pride for the options menu. Someone send this man to prison, he loves the options too much. I actually like the consistency of him being the options guy. It would just be like weird without seeing him there. But the first time that Melone becomes playable in a game is JoJo's Pitter Patter Pop, a mobile puzzle game that... it's gone now. Oh, I mean, that sucks. I don't know much about Pitter Patter Pop, but I can say that I like the art style. It sucks that it got shot down because it looks cool with all the characters and their animations and their designs. I really like the cutesy art style for it. The gameplay looks whatever, it's just a regular puzzle game. But still, it sucks that it's gone. Jorge Joestar it's something alright. It's a spinoff by Otaru Majio. Otaru Majima? This novel is known for having an insane plot that borders the line of being fan fiction, but it was endorsed by Araki with him drawing the cover and it also being published by Shueisha. It's a series that I dread to talk about, so let's just get to the Melone segment as fast as we can. Melone is not actually mentioned in the book. That's because he's instead drawn for one panel, so technically he's implied to be in this hellscape. But don't worry, Melone doesn't do that much. This is the 37th universe of La Squadra, and all they do is kill random civilians after their island that they were on grows a pair of legs and walks all the way to Morio. You see why I don't want to cover this? And then Melone just fades into the background. Alright, I'm done. I'm done talking about Jorge Joestar. May I never see you in the future, Jorge Joestar.
How you doing? Alright. My computer is just like totally on the fritz. Okay. Yeah, so...
And now we get to the part of the video that some of you guys have been waiting for, the short story. This short story stars Melone as the main character, as well as Giacchio, and it is titled Cuore
di Genitore, Ignaro il Figlio.
Yeah, we'll go with that. This story takes place before the events of Vintoreo, and is about Melone and Giacchio tasked to kill a famous director. But they run into a problem with Babyface entering a rebellious phase, and hijinks ensue. The story wasn't actually written by Araki, but was instead written by Ballad Kitaguni, who worked on some Thus Spoke Kishibe Rohan stories. The story begins with Giacchio walking down the street after buying some wine and cheese per request of Formaggio. As Giacchio finally makes it to the apartment that he's staying at, he sees Melone just chilling after he broke into the apartment. I noticed that's a common occurrence with Melone. He just breaks into private rooms without having an explanation on why or how he got in there. It's just something I noticed. Melone is visibly stressed out and looks disheveled. Giacchio came to actually check up on Melone since he is taking a long time to kill the target. It's been 2 days without results, and Giacchio and Risotto want answers. I like the dynamic between the two, giving off a close, trusted co-worker vibe to maybe even being sort of friends. They can get on each other's nerves, but they have genuine conversation that makes it feel like they've been working with each other for years. Giacchio offers to step in, but Melone tells him that an assassination job is akin to sex. If someone else gets involved, it'll complicate things. Sure. Whatever, man. It's strange that the target hasn't been killed yet, since Melone usually gets his jobs done really quickly. Speaking of the target, the person that Melone is tasked to kill is Amoretti Lucano. He is sort of a famous movie director with an interest in violence. His parents were killed at a young age due to gang violence, so he has this vengeance that he shares through his films. His films are so violent that they almost come off as like an expose, but Amoretti put his nose where it shouldn't belong by hiring a detective to investigate Passione. And the detective gets pretty far. He almost finds the prison that Polpo resides, but he was caught by Passione and interrogated for information on who hired him. And so the boss tasked the squadra to dispose of the film director in a way that wouldn't draw any attention to Passione. Joshua believes that the reason why it's taking so long is because Melone hasn't found a mother for Junior. But nope, Junior has already been born. He's just going through a rebellious phase. Junior is all like, killing is bad and he loves mama. Speaking of mama, Melone chose the housemaid of Amoretti for the mother because Babyface would be born inside the house. And also, it could make it out like the maid and Amoretti had an affair going on that went south. The maid doesn't really get a name in the story, but she is supposed to be this virtuous woman who is beautiful and caring. She even goes out of her way to stop working to tend to an injured cat in the garden. These virtues rub off on Junior, who has now developed a no-kill rule and is against Melone. This is odd because Melone says that that woman was the perfect mother for Junior. Her star sign reads that she would even harm Amoretti, but Junior has turned out to be a pacifist. Obviously, Melone and Giacchio are appalled by this because they see Babyface as a weapon. So just imagine the gun that you have just refusing to shoot because someone was nice to it. I have nowhere to add this to the script, but Melone canonically eats bread off the floor. Junior says that he prefers to love humans and tells Melone that he should just give up being a gangster and rehabilitate. Now, I don't want to pull something that wasn't there to begin with, but I find it slightly compelling that Babyface, the stand of Melone, is telling him to reform. I've personally always viewed stands as the extension of the soul of the user. So maybe this is something like deep down in Melone, where he feels like he should return to the right path. Or it could just be irrelevant. This is a short story, not written by Araki after all. There's a pretty funny scene in this where Giacchio makes fun of Melone for being such a bad father. It's kind of funny. But there's a reason why Melone doesn't get rid of this Junior since it's being rebellious. And that is because of its potential growth. Kind of like what we saw near the end of the fight with Giorno. The Babyface has the ability to grow beyond Melone's expectations. So he decides to keep this Junior instead, trying to talk him over. So Melone decides to set his foot down and says to Junior that he is designed to kill and that he created him and not the maid, so Junior should listen to him. But Junior claps back with this: "No, Melone, there's a saying that children can't choose their parents, but fortunately I gained the intelligence and experience to choose the suitable parent for myself. I'm truly glad to be Mama's son. Even if you erase me with my stand ability and I cease to exist, it's only my existence that dies. My pride as Mama's son will remain alive. That's not the death of my soul. Being used as a mere murder tool by you is a far more dreadful death of my soul." The two are taken aback by this. Melone notes how his life has kind of gotten weird, where his stand actively talks back in such a way. After that, Babyface straight up just ghosts them. So night comes, Amoretti goes to the villa and leaves the villa, and Melone and Giacchio are running out of time. The next night comes, and Melone is down in the dumps. He's upset that he's failed the mission, but Giacchio doesn't actually berate him. Instead, he has like a comforting tone to his words, saying that he could finish the job with White Album. And that's just something that I like about this story. It's that they humanize these two minor antagonists. While Giacchio's getting ready to finish the job, Melone gets a message from Babyface after a long period of silence. He says that the housemaid is acting violent towards Amoretti, and Junior is asking for advice about why this is happening. So this leads to the duo rushing to the window and peeking through binoculars to see into the villa. And this story takes a direction I never predicted it to go. As they look into the villa, they see Amoretti and the housemaid engaging in very hardcore masochistic sex. I'm not joking. I was not prepared for this. And Melone and Giashio are just watching in horror as this goes on, with the maid grabbing a toilet brush and leaving your imagination to fill in the gaps. This scene makes the title make sense now. I should have probably just said the title in English at the start, but the title means a parent's heart, an unknowing child. Showing that the maid's heart, the true heart, is unknown to the child. This also flips how their perception on the two individuals. With Armoretti, he wasn't looking into gang violence for vengeance. He was looking into it for this weird, disturbed sexual pleasure. And the housemaid being seen as a saint and then turned around to be a sadist. Junior is confused why his mother would do this. And Melone basically tells him the truth, that they're showing a form of love. And he kind of pushes Junior to accept and embrace that form of love. And I'm talking about harming, I'm not talking about the other one, you sicko. So Junior embraces it, saying that he will show Mama his love. Cut to morning, and Junior has already disposed of Armoretti and the maid. I like how Melone and Giashio are kind of in the state of uncomfortability. Giashio tells Melone to pick a straightforward woman next time so they don't have another situation like this. This might be why he chooses a more violent prone woman in Ventura Rayo. So Giashio, in a state of drunkenness, is upset with the boss's treatment and wants to know his secret. They both walk out of the apartment without a trace, but with a new lesson from this experience. Overall, for the whole story, I liked it. If you're a big La Squadra fan, I would recommend reading it. And there's some more books about the La Squadra individuals akin to this. I haven't read them yet, but I might read them later. This story took a turn that I was not expecting for a JoJo story, but still, I get what they were going for. It was still weird, but, you know, it fleshes out Giashio and Melone's character and makes them actually good, like, protagonists.
Melone, he turns people pregnant. Even man, I don't know what I'm saying.
Alright, let's do this one more time. I like the small parts of communities that obsesses over the tiniest of characters. Showing a lot of love to these characters that weren't meant to be fan favorites, but still get a little bit of a fandom. I would say Melone falls into this category. I mean, come on, look at him. Now, I know that this video is like almost half an hour long, but there isn't a lot to go off of about Melone as a person. I mean, Melone appears in like 3 episodes in the show. And that's where the long passed down tradition of the internet comes into play. Just make crap up, man. Headcanons! Yeah, headcanons. The definition of headcanons is a slang term for a fan's personal interpretation of the fictional story, character, or universe that is not explicitly confirmed in the canon. It acts as a way to fill in the gaps or add depths to the story, and usually without directly contradicting the established canon. It often also includes shipping or fan backstories. I don't want to sound like I hate headcanons. I actually do find them interesting, but my headcanons are very basic. Like, Giorno likes having Dijon mustard on his Italian flatbread. But Melone does have some interesting ones. 3 main ones that I'm gonna cover real quick, so let's get into that. First, Melone's freakiness has kind of been cranked up, but in a more comedic focus instead of how it's supposed to be, like, this creepy, like, unsettling one. It definitely makes him easier to make content about, because he's not like a bad person, he's more just a freakalicious. Why'd I say that?
Now can I have my own show, Peter?
Quagmire, you're a rapist.
The next headcanon that's popular, most people make Melone a trans woman. He went from objectifying women to becoming one. That's crazy. I get this headcanon. Melone does have a very feminine looking design. And also, with Melone, his stand puts him into a very maternal role with him raising Junior. One of my favorite single mothers in media. Wait, if Melone is mommy, then who's daddy? Oh, it's the default. So yeah, there's really no one else that could fill in the ship between Melone, because he's only interacted with probably 2 characters. 3 if you count the woman. But I do get it, because they do actually have some interesting interactions between each other, especially from what we covered in the short story. Their dynamic in the fandom is kind of like Melone's, like, aggravates Giashio, which is really easy to do, and Giashio gets mad. Alright, that's it. That's all I'm gonna cover for for the fandom, but I do recommend checking out some of the artists that I did put on the screen if you want to check out more. Also, their art's really good, so there's that. Okay, why did I make this video? Why did I spend almost 30 minutes talking about a character that the average fan would just forget about? Truthfully, I don't remember why I made this video. This isn't even a bit. I genuinely forgot. I fear that my health is declining. But that's not really the important part. The important part is when I end a big project like this, I think, what has this journey taught me? I believe that this journey, being as weird as it is, taught me that something so minor can actually mean something to someone. People are still making contents about this creep 29 years after his creation. I find that very interesting. And I find like any piece of information about Melone, I find it interesting and I throw it in this video. That's probably why it's kind of long. Guys, I believe that this video actually may have been a case of Stockholm Syndrome. Because when I went into this video, I thought Melone was a nobody. But now I actually kind of like him. Melone is truly became a lovable creep.